Welcome to this, my 8th in the series of videos entitled Rishi Devra, the Fantasy and the Facts. This video will be split into 4 parts, 8A, 8B, 8C, 8D, and they should be watched consecutively, although this set of videos is actually a soundtrack of an audio recording made by Mr. Watson in March of 2003 while meeting with Ms. West at a guest house on his property. The meeting came about because Mr. Watson announced that he was going to sue Miss West for defrauding him after he had worked for 6 months without pay, being promised shares and a salary by Miss West. After completing all of the work as per his agreement, Miss West suddenly announced that she had had a meeting with God the night before, who had told her that shares were a thing of the past, so Mr. Watson was not going to get any shares or any pay. Miss West insisted that Mr. Watson meet her in private on his property, which he agreed to do, because Mr. Watson was afraid that Miss West would pull some kind of stunt. He decided to record their meeting, which is allowed in Montana if it's a face-to-face meeting. During the meeting, Miss West makes it clear, in no uncertain terms, that she did defraud Mr. Watson. She admits she promised him salary. She admits that she promised him shares in the company. She admits she disposes of people like Kleenex and has no intention going forward of working with partners. Mr. Watson makes the point that he was telling the truth, and she says, yes, we know all of that. And when Mr. Watson insists on receiving reparations for the 6 months or so work he did unpaid, Miss West basically says that she doesn't see herself writing out a check for him. Clearly, Miss West has done this on numerous occasions before, and expects, like most other victims, that Mr. Watson will just agree to walk away empty-handed. When Mr. Watson insists that he's going to go forward and sue Miss West for fraud, Miss West then turns nasty and threatens to get so frigging down and dirty that Mr. Watson will not know what hit him. She doesn't actually use the word frigging. She uses another word, which you'll hear if you go forward with these recordings. Why is our group making this recording available at the present? We are making it available to show just how vindictive, spiteful, and dishonest Miss West is. These are not the actions of a guru. These are the actions of a criminal. Miss West admits her guilt, says that she's not going to do anything about it, and then when Mr. Watson says he's taking her to court, she basically threatens him and then spends the next 12 years trying to make his life an absolute misery. The first thing to happen is that Mr. Watson becomes the subject of character assassination from Miss West's websites by 3 of the doctors she had in tow at the time, who were brainwashed members of her cult. Doctors Cornell, Cole, and Williams. The next thing Miss West did was insist all of her employees manufacture false statements about John Watson's character so that she could use them in the court action to follow. After a clumsy attempt at a threat from Dr. Williams on Miss West's behalf, Mr. Watson became the victim of a campaign of occult attacks which continue to this day. On August 9th, 2007, Miss West's stooge, Jeffrey Reynolds, let it be known to the reporter of the Big Fork Eagle that Miss West intended to murder Mr. Watson for causing these news articles to be published and for taking her to court for fraud. And when all that didn't work, Miss West and Mr. Reynolds decided to take out a defamation lawsuit against Mr. Watson for telling the truth about them. The lawsuit was taken out in 2010, and since Mr. Watson had emigrated to Canada 5 years previously and lived on the other side of the continent, the lawsuit was undefended, as was Miss West's attempt to get an injunction, which she succeeded in doing, to force his websites down. Why would she want to force his websites down? So that the public could not learn about Miss West's past, thereby allowing her to move into Arizona, for instance, claiming to be an ascended master and running the same fraud scam she'd run in Montana and New Mexico before that. The first part of the soundtrack that Mr. Watson recorded starts now.
2:30 on Monday, the 3rd of March, 2003. Thanks for coming. I think this meeting's long overdue, but thanks for coming.
Well, as I said, I've been gone a lot. And the legal counsel that I had received was to stop the exchange of communication such as it wasn't earlier in the fall because it wasn't going anywhere.
Oh, for sure.
So I was advised not to speak to you. And in fact, if the attorneys knew now that I was, I'd probably get a bit of a what for. But I sincerely feel that going in the direction of litigation is stupid. I think it's really undignified of us both. It reminds me of Arafat and Sharon. And I just dislike taking part in it.
Maybe I should remind you that on the 2 occasions that lawyers got involved, you brought them in first.
That's correct. That's correct, because we really were sort of adrift at sea with our paperwork. And no one trusted that we would get the paperwork just through an exchange. So whether that was correct or not doesn't really need to be debated.
I'm not debating it.
I'm just saying that at this juncture point, to go in the direction that you seem to be wanting to go into is one that I feel very, like a dog being drugged by a leash to a place that I think is going to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and a lot of money, tremendous amount of money on both of our parts, tremendous, that could be going to better uses. So on that principle alone, I felt inspired to come by and see if there is a way to really come to some sort of conclusion of acceptance.
Yes, pay me for my work on Millennium Mind and the whole thing is finished and we go our own ways and life goes on. That's the end of it.
Share with me, if you will, how you got to this point of feeling that there was a monetary due.
Wow. Well, let's go back to the beginning. First of all, I volunteered to work with you on Millennium Mind, not SAI. At your request, I went to work at SAI on an agreed pay scale, and that is ancient history. We don't need to go there. Millennium Mind was always a for-profit organization. It was always going to have a shareholding until you decided otherwise. Just one more sentence. At some stage we got to talking... That was
not a direction that ever was clear to me. Just so that...
Well, then
if you want to go on, I think I'm pretty aware of how you felt as a businessman. Things should be set up. I just wanted to insert the piece that as things have moved forward, so much has happened that it has become clear to me that that approach was never the direction that the masters were choosing for Millennium Mind to go in.
I don't want to get into the masters, Devra. That is your get-out-of-jail card, the masters. The masters said, the masters said.
But that is who Millennium Mind belongs to. It does not belong to me, and it does not belong to you. It never did. It never did. So unless the vision was the vision that they're efforting to bring through on the planet, not just through me, but through the new partners that I'm working with, who are spiritual teachers, none of whom are interested in for-profit endeavor.
I'm really not wanting to talk about what you're doing now.
So is there, because I feel that maybe I'm foolish for thinking that if there was actually clarity, other than just your position, which you've dug your heels into so deeply, that it's as though no one else can exist. What was true for me, what was my experience, what millennial mind is in essence, what it always was in essence, is like non-relative to your world of ideology.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying there are two sides to the story, and
why are we having to agree?
Of course there are. And I remember having a conversation with you in your lounge of the lodge where we're talking about pay, and you said that you had a greater need for it at the moment initially, and I said that's not an issue, it's not a problem, and you said you felt that I was going to be having a salary of between 50 and 60,000 a year. That was discussed. It wasn't my imagination. Yeah.
If I was standing on a court of law, I would say yes.
Yeah.
That was discussed.
Okay. The other thing that was discussed freely amongst the three of us was a shareholding, and that came into fruition in the form of a draft contract, which exists.
Yes, we know that was all discussed.
So we don't have to argue about this. We can get a third party to look at it from a distance to see whether these things were discussed, whether they exist or not.
They were discussed.
Yeah.
I agree. They were discussed.
And then for some reason, I don't know when, around the May time, you decided that that was no longer appropriate. You didn't hold a meeting to say it wasn't appropriate. You just came out one day and said that we're not going in that direction, and there was nothing to replace it. So what did you think I would do? Just in a vacuum, just continue working for nothing forever? The whole premise of Millennium Mind, from my perspective, was we were going to set this up as a for-profit. There would be a salary, there would be shareholding, and when it took off, we would all move forward with it.
Well, but John, what ended up happening is that when I went to the lake in July and you were gone away for a period of time, I had a lot more time to meditate, to sit and receive what for me is important, because Millennium Mind really has moved from my heart and my mind more than anyone else's, and very little actually.
I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing
that.
I was always an employee.
So what was made clear to me was the direction that you were wanting to take it in was not the direction that the Masters or my higher guidance or my heart or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me really, was wanting things to go in. And it may not go in that direction ever.
What direction was that, Devra?
Into the for-profit container. And the for-profit...
But you and the Masters came up with that idea, and I dutifully typed it out on one of my many charts that you had me do with the balloons.
So what I discovered over all of these months, and I'm not through to the other side of it yet, is that it is being carefully unfolded. And the basis of Millennium Mind is a concept. More than anything else, it is a concept. It has to do with my writing, the transmissions of the archives of sacred manifestation. That is really primarily what it is about. So I have not done corporate consulting, even though it has been available to me quite abundantly, I might add. I have turned it down.
Well, I set forward on the basis that that was going to happen. At some point it changed, apparently.
In order to be true to the information that I've been asked to bring through. So what I anticipated, and I think probably what would have happened, is that I would have felt pushed